Hi readers, welcome to reading lesson 7. Today on our journey through traditional tales, we're going to think again about versions. A couple of lessons ago, we learned that a version was a specific form or style of something. We learned how a story can have different versions, like the story of Cinderella. Cinderella, Gay-shen, and the Korean Cinderella were all different versions of the same story. Sometimes authors get really creative and they think, what would this story sound like if a different character was telling it? We call that perspective. So what if a different character were looking at this story? For example, Cinderella was told from Cinderella's perspective. Or what did Cinderella think about the story? What if an author thought, what if the stepmother told the story? How would the stepmother look at the story differently? Or maybe even the stepsister. What if we told the story of Cinderella from the stepsister's perspective or point of view? Different authors can tell the same story in different ways, and it's important for us to think about that when we're doing our reading. Today's goal is I can compare and contrast two versions of a story that's told by different authors. Today we're going to be reading together A Giant's Tale. You may have brought this story home with you from school. If not, that's okay. It'll be in the Nearpod later for you to go back to. This is a neat story because it's actually written by a group of 8th graders that I once knew. They were in a creative writing class and their teacher challenged them and said, what if you told a story, a folk tale, from a different perspective? What if the giant told the story in Jack and the Beanstalk? And so they came up with this idea for the story called The Giant's Tale, told as if the giant were telling the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. So today we're going to read this story together, and then we're going to compare and contrast to see how it's the same from Jack and the Beanstalk and how it's a little bit different. Let's get started. Read along with me in your copy or read on the screen. Once upon a time, there was a very friendly giant named Jed. Jed lived in a castle in the sky. One night, Jed sat at his desk counting his gold. He decided to say a scary rhyme. Can you say it with me? Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. He saw a tiny boy sneaking away with a sack of gold. What a tiny boy, he thought. He must be poor because he is stealing gold. I will invite him to dinner. Jed chased the tiny boy, but could not find him. The next evening, Jed ate dinner with a new friend. Her name was Gracie Goose. Gracie could lay eggs made of gold. Jed told Gracie his scary rhyme. Fee, can you do it with me? Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. Jed was very tired. He fell asleep in his chair. He did not see a tiny boy put Gracie in his sack. The boy took her down the beanstalk. Later that day, Jed was very tired from a hard day of work. He had his singing harp sing him a song. Jed fell fast asleep. The tiny boy leapt out from behind a cupboard. He grabbed the harp and took off running toward the beanstalk. Jed! The harp screamed. Help! Jed woke up. My harp is in trouble, he cried. He took off chasing after her. Sorry, that came out rough. Jed saw the little boy sliding down the beanstalk. He began to slide down the beanstalk to find his harp. The tiny boy was at the bottom of the beanstalk. He was quickly cutting it down with his axe. The beanstalk began to sway. Jed came crashing to the ground. The next thing Jed knew, he was lying in the hospital. Sitting next to his bed were the tiny boy next to a tiny, very angry woman. Hello, said the woman. My name is Dottie. This is my son, Jack. I just found out that Jack has been taking your things without asking. I am not happy with him. Jack, what do you need to say to the giant? Jack looked down at the floor. He felt bad. I'm sorry, Mr. Giant. I shouldn't have taken your things, but we are so hungry, and you have so many wonderful things. I have been able to sell them and buy us some food. Please, plus you are a giant. Aren't all giants mean and terrible? Jed felt sorry for the little boy. He did look very hungry and very poor. He wanted to show the boy that not all giants are bad. My name is Jed, he said. I will make a deal with you. Why don't you come to my castle and help me work? I will pay you with some of the gold. Then you will not be poor and hungry. Really? Said Jack. I'd love to. From that day on, Jack worked with Jed. He was glad to learn 2 lessons. You should never take what doesn't belong with you. And sometimes the best friends are the ones who look very different from you. All right, second graders, what lesson can you learn from this story? Use details from the story to support your answer, and then we'll get started with our reading lesson for today.